Nature abounds with weird and wonderful defense mechanisms evolved over millions of years to protect their owners from predators and allow them to live and breed another day. Some organisms like crabs, turtles, and armadillos are clad in tough suits of armor, while others like rosebushes and acacia trees, porcupines and hedgehogs, and lion and stonefish ward off attackers with an array of sharp and sometimes venomous spines. Other defenses are more active, like the clouds of ink released by squid and octopus, the stinky musk sprayed by skunks, or the sticky, choking mucus secreted by hagfish. But all these formidable defenses pale next to those of a small, humble-looking insect. Armed with the biological equivalent of a rocket engine, when threatened, these creatures unleash a burst of caustic, boiling hot steam from their abdomens, blinding, wounding, or at least convincing would-be attackers to think twice. It is an ability so extreme and unlikely that it is often cited by creationists as evidence against the theory of evolution. But how does this tiny insect flamethrower work, and how did it actually come to be? Let's find out as we dive into the fascinating world of the Bombardier Beetle. Bombardier beetles are extremely common and widely distributed insects, comprising over 500 species found on all continents except Antarctica. Belonging to the tribes Brachini, Pacini, Ozanini, and Metrini in the family Carabidae, aka the ground beetles, Bombardier beetles range from 3 to 30 millimeters in length and vary in appearance, with some being plain brown, black, or orange, others mottled black and yellow, and still others being metallic blue or green. Living mainly in temperate forests and grasslands among the leaf litter, Bombardier beetles are all carnivorous, subsisting on smaller insects, including the larvae of butterflies, moths, and other beetles. They are often found in or near the carcasses of animals, which commonly attract their favorite prey, and when not hunting, are very social, often gathering together in dark, moist hiding places such as under dead leaves, logs, or stones. These beetles undergo a holometabolic life cycle, aka complete metamorphosis, comprising 4 stages or instars. After mating, adult female beetles lay their eggs on the ground in rotting leaf litter or logs. These hatch into caterpillar-like larvae, which, being ectoparasitoids, feed on the eggs, larvae, and pupae of other species such as whirligig and scavenging beetles. This is similar to the life cycle of parasitic wasps, which lay their eggs on the bodies of live larvae like caterpillars. The eggs then hatch, and the larvae burrow into the host, consuming it from the inside out until only a hollowed-out husk remains. And if this sounds eerily familiar, yes, this gruesome process was likely the inspiration for the life cycle of the xenomorph in the Alien movie franchise. The Bombardier beetle larvae shed their skin or molt in order to grow, and after several molts enter a dormant stage known as pupa, forming a hard protective outer layer of skin within which they develop into adult beetles. The adult stages, or imagos, then emerge from their pupal cases, and the whole cycle begins anew. Development from hatchling to pupa takes around 10 days, and from pupa to imago around 20, while adult Bombardier beetles live for a few weeks. So far, so normal, at least for a beetle. But what makes Bombardier beetles truly unique and gives them their dramatic name is their extreme method of defense against predators. Like all beetles, Bombardier beetles have 2 sets of wings, one of which evolved into hard wing cases known as elytra. While this adaptation provides beetles with additional protection, it also makes them slower than most flying insects at escaping danger, for their elytra must first be opened with their inner wings deployed before they can take off. Thus, to bridge the gap and ward off attackers, Bombardier beetles depend on their extraordinary ability to shoot bursts of caustic, boiling hot chemicals out of their abdomens. This remarkable adaptation has been known and admired for at least 200 years, with the African bombardier beetle, or Stenaptinus insignis, being commonly known as the oogpista, or eye-pisser, in the Afrikaans language of South Africa. Even the great naturalist and father of evolutionary biology, Charles Darwin, once found himself on the receiving end of this nasty chemical onslaught in 1828, 3 years before his life-altering voyage aboard HMS Beagle. The then 19-year-old Darwin was, at the behest of his father, studying at Cambridge to become an Anglican minister. During this period, he became obsessed with beetles, often venturing into the surrounding countryside with his cousin, William Darwin Fox, to collect specimens. As he later recalled, nothing was spared in the trophy hunt. He bought a sweeping net and learned how to trap tiny, jumping and flying insects. Sheaves of cardboard were festooned with beetles, each pinned in its proper place. He also hired a local to collect the debris from the bottom of barges that brought reeds from the fens, which he sifted through, hunting down his prey. It was not simple slaughter, for some beetles had unexpected defenses. One day, on stripping bark from a dead tree, he pinned down 2 rare types, one in each hand. Suddenly, he saw a third new species, too good to lose. His action was that of a trained egg collector. He popped the right one on his mouth. Unfortunately, it was a Bombardier Beetle, which promptly lived up to its name by squirting a noxious boiling fluid into his throat, momentarily stunning him. He spat the beetle out, losing it on the ground, and in the confusion, dropped the others too. Apparently, Darwin learned nothing from this experience, for in an 1846 letter to fellow naturalist Leonard Jennings, he reported a similar encounter, quoting again, "A circus rostratus once squirted into my eye and gave me extreme pain, and I must tell you what happened to me on the banks of the River Cam in my early entomological days. Under a piece of bark I found 2 carabi, I forget which, and caught one in each hand, when, lo and behold, I saw a scared Pangaeus crux major. I could not bear to give up either my carabi, and to lose Panagaeus was out of the question, so that in despair I gently seized one of the carabi between my teeth, when, to my unspeakable disgust and pain, the little inconsiderate beast squirted his acid down my throat, and I lost both carabi and Panagaeus." End quote. Now, we non-naturalists here at Today I Found Out tell you that putting any insect in your mouth to hold it is probably a bad idea, but then again, we're not Charles Darwin, are we? The Bombardier Beetle's explosive secretions originate in 2 pairs of specialized glands located in the insect's pygidium, the rearmost segment of the dergum or dorsal section of the exoskeleton, which in most insects also contains the anus and reproductive organs. One set of these pygidal glands produces and stores an aqueous solution of hydrogen peroxide or H2O2, perhaps best known for its use in bleaching hair or disinfecting minor wounds, and hydroquinone, an organic compound once widely used as a developer for black and white photographic film, but now mainly used as a medication to depigment or whiten skin in patients suffering from hyperpigmentation and other dermatological conditions. It's also one of the major constituents of castoreum, a waxy secretion of the anal glands of beavers, sometimes used in the manufacture of high-end perfumes and vanilla flavoring. The other set of glands store a number of enzymes known as catalases and peroxidases. When the beetle feels threatened, it contracts the muscular walls of these glands and opens a pair of valves, releasing the respective chemical cocktails into a tough, thick-walled chamber known as a vestibule. Here, aided by the enzymes, the peroxide and hydroquinone react hypergolically, the hyperquinone being oxidized and the hydrogen peroxide decomposing into oxygen and hot, high-pressure steam at temperatures of up to 100 Celsius or 212 Fahrenheit. This same energetic process of hydrogen peroxide decomposition has been widely used by human engineers to power a variety of vehicles and weapons, including manned rocket-powered aircraft, guided missiles, space launch vehicles, torpedoes, and submarines. This highly exothermic reaction vaporizes about a fifth of the total reactants, generating extremely high pressures. This pressure forces the valves from the pygidal glands shut, protecting the beetle's internal organs from being cooked, and forces the boiling, corrosive witch's brew out of a vent in the beetle's anus towards its attacker with a loud popping sound. This process is very energy efficient. For being powered by pressurized oxygen, it requires little muscle power beyond that needed to open the reactant valves. In some species, the chemical discharge occurs continuously, while others produce a rapid-fire sequence of chemical pulses lasting only around a 500th of a second. The latter system is thought to be a later evolutionary development, for continuously feeding in fresh reactants helps keep the vestibule cool and prevent the Bombardier Beetle from boiling itself alive. The beetle's innards are further protected by the tough lining of the vestibule itself, which is reinforced with the same chitin protein that makes up the beetle's exoskeleton and the vestibule's anal valve. This safely vents even inadvertent discharges into the environment. The end result is a noxious spray of scalding hot quinones that can kill smaller predators like insects and other invertebrates outright, seriously injure small vertebrates like toads and shrews, and irritate the eyes and respiratory tracts of even larger attackers, including meddlesome British naturalists. Some species, like Stenopetinus insignis, aka the African oogpister, are able to accurately aim their attacks, swiveling their abdomen up to 270 degrees between their legs to deliver their noxious discharges directly into an attacker's face. This ability is particularly useful for fending off swarms of ants, which often prey upon ground-dwelling Bombardier beetles. Indeed, most species are able to fire their chemical cannon up to 20 times in quick succession before running out of ammunition, giving them more than enough time to deploy their wings and fly away. This powerful chemical punch is highly effective, allowing bombardier beetles to reliably survive encounters with much larger predators. For example, in a 2018 study conducted at Japan's Kobe University, researchers Shinji Sugiura and Takaya Sato fed Phosphorus jessonesis, aka the Asian bombardier beetle, to two species of toads, Bufo japonicus and Bufo torrenticola, and noted the results. They found that while all the toads ate the beetles, 43% of them vomited their meals back up between 12 and 107 minutes later, with larger beetles being more likely to escape than smaller ones. Even more impressively, 93% of the beetles survived for at least 2 weeks after being swallowed, their typical natural lifespan, even after being exposed to the toad's digestive juices for nearly 2 hours. Indeed, so extraordinary and unbelievable is the bombardier beetle's defense mechanism that creationists often hold it up as evidence against the theory of evolution. The beetle's chemical canon, the argument goes, is so perfectly designed and integrated that it could not have evolved incrementally, since earlier incomplete iterations would either A, have burdened their owners with anatomical features serving no biological advantage, or B, blown them to smithereens as soon as the chemical reactants came into contact with each other. Thus, the bombardier beetle, like all of life on Earth, must have been designed and brought into existence fully formed by an intelligent creator. This argument was most famously advanced by Dr. Duane T. Gish of the Institute for Creation Research, or ICR, who wrote in his 1977 book, Dinosaurs, Those Terrible Lizards. This scientist, Dr. Hermann Schildknecht, found out, first of all, that the bombardier beetle mixes up two kinds of chemicals, hydrogen peroxide and hydroquinone. Now, the marvelous thing about this is if you or I went into a chemistry laboratory and mixed up these two chemicals, boom, we would blow ourselves up. But not the bombardier beetle. He's too smart. When he mixes up these two chemicals, he makes sure he adds another kind of chemical called an inhibitor. The inhibitor somehow prevents the other two chemicals from blowing up. In other words, they just sit there together, real peaceful like. The beetle then stores this liquid in two storage chambers, ready to be used when needed. How does Mr. BB make the chemical solution explode just at the right time in spite of the fact that it contains an inhibitor? Dr. Schildknecht found out just at the exact moment Mr. BB wants to fire his two cannons, he squirts in an anti-inhibitor. The anti-inhibitor neutralizes or knocks out the inhibitor, and the two chemicals, the hydrogen peroxide and the hydroquinone, can then react violently together and explode. Now, while at first glance this argument might seem compelling, it is in fact based on a gross misrepresentation of the facts, for nowhere in the cited 1961 paper does Dr. Hermann Schildknecht mention any kind of inhibitor chemical. Indeed, none is needed, for as can be readily demonstrated in any reasonably well-equipped laboratory, mixing together hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide does not in fact yield an explosive reaction. Rather, as Dr. Schildknecht does state in his paper, quoting here, during the pop, the contents of the paired pygidial defense bladders of the bombardier beetle, hydrogen peroxide and hydroquinone, are squeezed in small portions into chitinous chambers, and there they are explosively transformed into oxygen, quinone, and water. This explosion chamber reaction is catalyzed by enzymes which are emptied as dark brown 40 to 60% albumin solution out of one-celled annex glands into the front chamber. This beetle manufactures a 25% solution of hydrogen peroxide and a 10% solution of hydroquinone, but we can now also show that the enzyme that sparks off these chemicals is also stored in an extraordinarily high concentration. In the explosion chamber, a 40 to 60% albumin solution is stored, which consists of 1/3 peroxidase and 2/3 catalase. We are concerned here with the secretion of the annex glands, which empty into the front chamber of the pygidial bladder, an extension of the anus." End quote. Yet despite being called out on this misrepresentation several times in the late 70s, Gish continued to push this flawed argument, stating in a January 17, 1980 debate with Dr. John W. Patterson at Graceland College, Iowa, that, quote, "The bombardier beetle is a remarkable little creature that has this explosive mechanism. He stores two chemicals in a storage chamber, and he puts in an inhibitor to keep it from exploding or decomposing. He squirts it in the combustion tube, and then he adds an anti-inhibitor, and there, all the enzymes there, sick, and boom. An explosion goes off right in the face of his enemy. Beautifully timed, beautiful mechanism. You have to have thick storage chambers, you have to have the two chemicals, you have to have an inhibitor, you have to have an anti-inhibitor, you've got to have those combustion tubes, you have to have the communication network all present and functioning, just as you have to have every part on the rockets to go to the moon present and functioning. How are you going to explain that step by step by evolution and natural selection? It cannot be done. Exclamation point. As an aside, if Dr. Gish sounds strangely familiar, that's because he is the namesake of the Gish Gallop, a term for a peculiar kind of disingenuous debate tactic first coined by anthropologist Eugenie Scott in 1994. This involves bombarding one's opponent with so many specious arguments, half-truths, or outright lies that it becomes impossible to properly address all of them within the allotted response time. This in turn gives the misleading impression that said opponent is unable to properly refute the galloper's arguments. This tactic relies heavily on Brandolini's law, defined by its namesake, Italian programmer Alberto Brandolini, as the amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude bigger than that needed to produce it. The general form of Gish's argument regarding the Bombardier Beetle's defense mechanism has been applied by creationists to various other anatomical features, including eyes, wings, and the flagella or tails used by certain types of bacteria for perfusion. In every case, the argument is the same, that these features could not have possibly evolved incrementally, for the incomplete intermediate forms would have conferred no evolutionary advantage. In other words, as the argument is often summarized, what good is half an eye? However, all such attacks are ultimately examples of two closely related logical fallacies: argument from ignorance and argument from incredulity. Indeed, in every commonly cited case, biologists have, in fact, come up with at least one plausible pathway by which even the most complex anatomical feature could have incrementally evolved. For example, many organisms, such as planarian flatworms, have extremely rudimentary eyes comprising single patches of light-sensitive cells. While these are capable of little more than discerning light from dark, this ability is nonetheless evolutionarily useful, allowing an organism to avoid drying out in the sun or to escape predators by detecting their shadows as they pass overhead. If at some point the organism acquires a genetic mutation that causes this light-sensitive patch to change from a flat sheet to a concave decompression, then its utility is incrementally improved, as now the organism is able to determine the direction of a particular source of light and shadow. And if this depression closes further, producing an image-focusing pinhole, then the organism gains the ability to more accurately discern between different shapes. Indeed, the chambered nautilus, a type of hard-shelled cephalopod that lives in the deep ocean, has open pinhole camera eyes of this type. From here, it's easy to see how, over millions of years, this primitive eye could acquire additional features, such as a solid lens and muscles for swiveling and focusing, each of which render it incrementally more useful. Thus, the answer to the question, what good is half an eye, is simple: better than a quarter of an eye, or no eye at all. Similar rebuttals apply to other allegedly impossible biological structures commonly cited by creationists. For example, the earliest feathers, which first appeared on dinosaurs during the Middle Triassic period around 235 million years ago, may have been used for display or insulation, while the first primitive feathered wings, which appeared around the late Jurassic 160 million years ago, potentially helped their owners leap and later glide short distances before evolving the ability to confer full-powered flight. And the whip-like flagella that help propel various microorganisms likely evolved from pre-existing cellular organelles. For example, Yersinia pestis, the bacterium responsible for the infamous bubonic plague or Black Death, uses long syringe-like structures to inject toxins into other cells. These structures are nearly identical to bacterial flagella, missing only a handful of molecular components needed to make them functional in that role. So it is for the Bombardier Beetle's defense mechanism. Plausible incremental evolutionary pathways for which have been posited by several biologists, most notably taxonomist Mark Isaac. As Isaac points out, most insects naturally produce quinones, which they use to harden or skeletonize their exoskeletons or cuticles after molting. Hydrogen peroxide is also produced by all animal cells, including our own, as a byproduct of regular cellular respiration. As previously mentioned, hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide will not violently react without the help of catalases and peroxidases, meaning these two chemicals could easily have coexisted in the beetles' bodies even before they evolved their reinforced reaction chamber or vestibule. Conveniently, in addition to helping to harden cuticles, quinones are also toxic or repellent to many organisms, meaning beetles which produced more of these compounds would have enjoyed an evolutionary advantage. Indeed, quinones are responsible for the defensive odor produced by insects of the family Pentatomidae, better known as shield bugs, or more appropriately, stink bugs. More relevantly, many members of the carbidae or ground beetle family have shallow depressions on their abdomens under their elytra or wing cases in which they store large quantities of quinones, making them highly unpalatable to predators. Such shallow depressions could easily have evolved into fully enclosed glands as seen in Bombardier beetles, while the addition of hydrogen peroxide to the hydroquinone mix would have made it even more toxic. If such beetles then acquired the ability to produce catalases and peroxidases, allowing them to decompose some of the hydrogen peroxide, this would have further enhanced their defensive abilities. Indeed, the contracted bombing beetle, or Metrius contractus, does just this, using the oxygen and steam produced by decomposing small quantities of hydrogen peroxide to excrete a noxious quinone foam. This foam could either be projected rearward or forwards along grooves in the beetle's elytra. From here, the evolutionary pathway to modern Bombardier beetles with a fully explosive defensive payload is fairly straightforward, with Mark Isaac citing the existence of the contracted bombing beetle and full-blown Bombardier beetles with both pulsed and unpulsed delivery systems as evidence that different branches of the evolutionary tree paused at different stages of development based on local evolutionary pressures. In summary, contrary to the claims of Dwayne Gish and others, every step in this developmental chain offers an incremental evolutionary advantage, and at no point is the beetle in danger of blowing itself up. Indeed, so useful is this defense mechanism that some biologists believe that it actually evolved twice. While it was previously believed that typical Bombardier beetles of the subfamily Braconii evolved directly from older subfamily Porcini, aka the flanged Bombardier beetles, recent DNA evidence suggests that the two lineages are only distantly related and that Braconii evolved their bombing ability independently on a later date. However, this specific branch of entomology remains relatively unexplored, and the true evolutionary history of Bombardier beetles is poorly understood. In conclusion, as one of the most extraordinary and badass members of the animal kingdom, the Bombardier beetle stands as a testament to the sometimes improbable wonders that biological evolution can produce, and a useful reminder of the basic principle so often ignored by creationists and other science deniers: just because you can't think of a plausible answer doesn't mean that someone else hasn't. Thank you for watching.